What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for another edition of the Daily Drop, and we're here to talk about the football portal. I can't even talk because my mind is just spinning with football portal information and trying to figure out who's leaving, who's not leaving, who's already entered the portal. I bet you're as ecstatic about the football portal being open as I am, AJ. Are you as excited as I am over here?
Yeah, the balloons released from the backyard at midnight.
The confetti fell.
The confetti, the fireworks, the band out front that my wife hired for me, the marching band.
Just a celebration because the football portal's open, yeah.
So, by the way, basketball's open, and we're still trying. And I'm also, for years in this job, this is my 11th year in this position, because you want to have some human time in the off season. Late March or whatever basketball would end, the coverage part of the games would end, as you well know, because you produced some of this stuff in the past. That in April has always been about building off-season content that has a shelf life. So I get into May and June, I can go back home to the DC area, and I can maybe work a couple hours a day, and I have content to pop up there. It's ready to roll. So I'm still doing that, but on top of that, you've got basketball portal stuff, which has slowed some now.
Yeah.
But we're still dealing with retention stuff. I had a post yesterday, Tuesday. Is this Tuesday? Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was to be Tuesday. Yes. Whatever day it is, I
had
know.
to think about it. I had a post. For 2 days, I spent talking to multiple sources about Drake Powell, and I post there on that. So we're still working that and all that kind of stuff. And we're do some drops on some more of the basketball portal commits. So I've been pinning my ears back on that stuff. And now we've got football. And football is different than basketball because Carolina basketball fans, or Carolina fans in general, are going to pin their ears back and want every little detail about what's going on with the basketball portal because there aren't as many names. And each kid you pick up is it more affects what happens next year. Football, other than maybe quarterback, that we're going to talk about here in a second, is not as much. That's not as much the case. It's a quicker deal. It's only 2 weeks, and a lot of guys leave. People are like, whatever. They gnaw on every little detail in basketball. They don't gnaw on as much in football. They will some, especially the quarterback situation. But it's still a lot of names to fly by. So I'm very fortunate that the Rivals Network does an amazing job. JC Zemble, who runs our NC State site in the Rivals Network, he handles the portal stuff for both. And you saw, I was just texting him before we came on about stuff. He does an incredible job with it.
I can't imagine.
Incredible job. I mean, he whatever they're paying him, they need to quintuple it because he does such a good job with that. So I feel good now that the portal's here that we're going to have information. We're going to have timely information. We may not always post it right away because of the nature of it. I can't sit here in this spot for 24 hours a day. I got to at least get my steps. I got to go in there and say hello to Kim and Ellie. I got to take Max for a walk.
Maybe eat, drink some water, maybe.
Or I don't want to get muscle spasms during stuff, so I've been drinking this Gatorade Zero crap for a long time now.
You cramp up when you're
tired. And I'm also, you know what I do every off season? I get in the process where I start to reset my body.
Yeah.
Because the season's such a grind. And I reset my body, and I'm in the process of doing that right now. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And it is exciting. Fans love it because it's like shopping. You're going on a shopping spree. So you're losing some stuff. Okay, we cleared it out. We had the yard sale. We got, and whatever we didn't sell at the yard sale, we took to local charity and donated. All right. Oh, we're going to go. We have this room to fill in the house. We're going to go buy. Let's take this $700 we got from the yard sale plus some other money we had earmarked. Let's go buy some new stuff. That's what portal season is. And it's more that way. Football is more yard sale-ish than basketball. There's a yard sale element to football.
Yeah, there's just so much power of it.
And right now Carolina is in the midst of a yard sale. It's like perpetually 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's just, it's like a neighborhood wide yard sale. Yeah, just across the country in college football right now. And yeah, it's a lot, and it moves fast, and things happen quickly. And there's already been a couple of we're recording this on Wednesday, but there's a couple of guys that have already entered the portal. I think Bo Atkinson, Zion Ferguson, just to name a couple of them. I know Bo Atkinson, a little bit of a surprise. I mean, it was one I always say that every podcast I hop on. I got to stop saying when someone enters the transfer portal, it's a surprise, because it shouldn't be a surprise anymore. But Atkinson was one that I looked at and was like, local kid, really, no. I was a little bit shocked by that one personally.
I was very surprised that I try to steal minutes to be a human being this time of year. And we all know the running joke that whenever AJ decides to spend a little bit of time with his wife or take his daughter somewhere, that something's going to happen. Deanie used to joke that whenever Andrew's up in a plane 30,000 feet in the air, something's going to break. And it did. And it always did. So it happened last week a bunch of times. I took Ellie to go stargazing. She's big into astronomy right now. So we went to Jordan Lake, where it's clear. There's no light pollution, she called it.
That was Jonathan Powell. Was that Jonathan Powell?
That was Jonathan Powell.
Yeah.
All right. And then another time it's something else. And then last night, I'm finally sitting down. So, okay, other than posting the overnight content, the overnight piece, I'm done. I sit down with my wife. It's like 9:25. And I told her, I said, look at the clock. An hour and a half, something's going to break. We're in the middle of watching a movie or something like that. Swear to you, I exhale once. Not kidding. 2 minutes later, Bo Atkinson's going to be in the portal. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me.
Can someone explain? I need someone to explain to me why every guy anything that happens in the portal, basketball or football related with Carolina, why does everybody decide to commit, or the commitment comes public at about 11 o'clock at night? Like, why does everybody enter the portal at like midnight? Can we just do it during the day?
There was a period basketball commits were happening that way. Caleb Love committed at 10:30 on a Friday night.
I think all
RJ Davis committed at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Walker Kessler committed at like 11:30 on a Sunday night. What is
that? I don't get that. It's just what are they sitting around all day? At 10 o'clock, I'm gonna pull the trigger, man. It's like, what are we waiting for? it's unbelievable, man.
But Bo Atkinson. As I sit here right now, I have no idea why. I'm not going to make something up, try to make it seem like I know. I have no idea why. And I'll tell you what, there are occasions where, and I get what you're saying about not being surprised, because really nothing should surprise us. Nothing should surprise us.
Like Zion Ferguson into the portal, and I was like, not surprised.
Not a surprise. Not a surprise. And we know a couple of the names that are going to, but they haven't yet, and I'm not going to say them until they're in, because, again, what if they, the last second, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to look like I don't want to be wrong.
And it's also, like you always say, it's there. They have the right to announce that.
Very rarely do guys announce they're going in the portal.
Yeah, it just kind of happens now, yeah.
Because it's not a celebratory move.
Some people put out a statement sometimes on the little graphic.
Thank you, Tar Heel Nation, but I can't stand those things.
Yeah, they're just.
If you're always a Tar Heel, then why are you leaving the Tar Heels? If you're always a Hoosier, why are you leaving the Hoosiers? That doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
So anyway, but maybe I'm just really old and don't get it. As far as Bo goes, I don't understand. I don't know why. So I'll try to find out why. Honestly, we were talking about it in the press box after the spring event Saturday about, who are some guys do you think are going to enter? And everyone's kind of sharing their opinions. And I said, well, we were also talking about who did we recognize on the field since there were no numbers. And everyone's first name is Bo Atkinson. Mm-hmm. He stands out. And so, Thor. That's his nickname, Thor. And I'm like, well, we didn't get player interviews at all this spring. So the last time we talked to players was literally inside Fenway Park after the bowl game. And the only guy that was still on the roster from that team was Bo Atkinson. So now we're going to have to go back to the NC State game or something like that. We could say, hey, the last time we talked to anybody on the current roster, we're going back into November of last year now, which is a different topic for a different day, but I'm making a point. So now Bo's gone. He's probably the guy I would have least expected to enter the portal.
Yeah.
He had led the team in sacks. I mean, he's to me from the distance that I have, and I was a lot closer pre-Belichick now, as opposed to now Belichick. He would be like the perfect guy for Belichick.
Me too. I thought so too. Yeah.
He earned the nickname Thor for a reason. Think about it. Look it up if you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing else will surprise me now. I am taking the Jacob Turner line, and I'm going to adapt to it. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to marinate in it. I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, I got to stop saying it. I'm putting the flag in the ground. I'm never saying I'm surprised by a guy entering the portal. Even though a lot of times I am kind of surprised.
Yeah, never did. This is it. Because I thought he was going to be the voice of the team.
Me too. I thought he was a guaranteed starter, and I thought he was going to be one of Carolina's best defensive players.
Yeah. If we get players every week, we don't know what the process is going to be. But if you follow what has happened before at every program I've covered, not just North Carolina, he would be one of those guys. Like we got Cedric Gray every week, right? I think Amari Campbell, who's good with the media, and Bo Atkinson, they would be the two I figure we would get every week.
He'd be one of those guys that if they lose, he'd be coming out and talking. Yeah, if they lose, he'd be one of the guys coming out.
And so we get Cedric Gray and Kamen Rucker, for example. Mm-hmm. We got Elijah Huzzy a lot last year because Elijah was good spokesman for the team. So that's that. So the portal's here. Guys are entering right now as we're recording this. My phone is going to die. I'm going to have to keep it perpetually plugged in because
it doesn't explode first. Yeah.
See, if it made noise, people would think there's like an air raid siren going off right now during this podcast if it made noise. It's wild stuff, man. And I said all along that this spring was going to be spring portals the last few years have not been very active. Mm-hmm. And it never weighed me down. I never felt like I had to be near my laptop during the spring football portal period. Now I've like redone my schedule for things. How often am I walking either early because nothing's going to happen earlier, or how often do I text you guys I'm getting my steps at like 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night? So I figured, okay, now's the time I can go out and get 10,000 steps. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I bring my reading glasses with me on my walks now. Mm-hmm. So I can read my phone.
And that's not a surprise. Like you said, this offseason is a little different because of the new regime and because you're expecting more guys. I'm not going to say more guys leaving. I think that kind of comes with it, but you're expecting more activity in the portal from North Carolina, I think, for sure. And you put out a piece, I believe, on Wednesday morning, or maybe it was Tuesday. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I put it out. It was Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, so it might as well be
Wednesday. It's for the Wednesday morning first. We always want to have at least minimum one fresh story when people wake up in the morning. And that's what you're talking about.
It's the article that you referenced. It's you kind of looked at, what is Carolina? What are maybe some positions that Carolina might be going after pretty actively in the portal? And I'll let people go read that themselves, and you can talk about it a little bit too. But I'll ask you this question because this is I think
it's a free content item too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'll ask you this directly because I think this is what people are obviously most curious about because not rocket science, the most important position on the football team, if you guys didn't know. Do you think Carolina's quarterback is currently in Chapel Hill or on campus right now?
I mean, the quarterback who starts the TCU
the starting
game?
Quarterback, I should say. Against TCU, do you think is he enrolled at Carolina yet? Is the question.
I have maintained since they didn't land anybody else at quarterback during the winter that the starting quarterback for the TCU game is not on Carolina's campus. After spring football has been completed, and even though it's a different staff, we're not completely blocked out of information. I still do have some avenues I could travel. They're more like back alleys. They're not highways. With Mac, it was more highways. We had more access, more information. So it's just kind of a rocky cobblestone back alley right now. But we still have some information. I don't believe the starting quarterback for the TCU game is on campus right now. Mm-hmm. And I've maintained, you and I did a podcast a week or so ago, maybe a week and a half ago, where I did a drop. I mean, I think
it was a drop. It was
all this stuff runs together. Hell, it could have been a drop we did 8 years ago, and I'm thinking it just happened. But I have said and maintained all along, I do not think the starter is there. And that is not to denigrate who's there. Bryce Baker, I will repeat and remind people, is higher rated coming out than Drake or Sam were. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's got a lot of the same trimmings that they have, but he's also not playing for Mac Brown now. And Sam could start as a true freshman because Sam was I first interviewed Sam Howell when he was a freshman in high school because I chip in with some of our football recruiting stuff. And I happened to interview Sam when he got an offer as a freshman. And then that summer, I saw him at a camp down at in South Carolina. We went and covered, and I interviewed him. And this is a summer between his freshman and sophomore year of high school. I remember telling some people, that guy's a pro. I mean, he was conditioned to be a pro from the outset. So when he got to Chapel Hill, he was so far ahead in some of those intangibles that are not throwing the ball, that are not where your feet are set, that are not how you check down, the other things that go into playing quarterback that he can handle right away. I don't know Bryce Baker well enough yet to know if he has those things, but my understanding is that is a work in progress for him. So I have a hard time seeing Bill Belichick at his age and the stage in his career, and with what's on the line, with all the eyes that are watching, that he would hand the keys over to an 18, 19-year-old just out of high school to run the team, even no matter how talented he is. I also look at Ryan Brown and watch his film and see what I've seen in person here in the last month and a half, and think, okay, a guy that was the backup on a 1-11 Purdue team is going to take the keys for Bill Belichick and run this thing. When Bill Belichick is operating in a very small window, smaller than when Mac got there. When Mac was 67, when Sam took his first snap. Belichick's going to be 73 when whoever takes the first snap against TCU is. So their quarterback is not here. He's somewhere else. Now, we have an idea now who it might be. There was a scent about Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee. There was
good pronunciation right there.
But his people are so delusional that he's not going to land anywhere for a while, probably, unless someone just says, let's just open the bank.
Yeah, when I saw the $4 million, I don't even know if it's true or not. They asked him price.
My understanding is he's asking. Tulane backed out.
Tulane can afford that.
Well, they've got some money. I mean,
but for one guy,
they've got a lot of dudes, and if they bring in the right quarterback, that might be Tulane's chance to get the CFP, which they'll make that money back. And they got a good coach who's very ambitious. So I could see why they were interested. But my understanding is that they're asking for more from the North Carolinas and Tulanes because they don't provide the same stage. They don't have the same pedigree. So if you want us, you have to pay us more. Which is why Duke overpaid for the Tulane quarterback, by the way.
Yeah.
Because, if Ohio State wouldn't have to pay as much because they're providing a different platform. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how this goes. If you're Nico, you're like, hey, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm so good I could walk away from Tennessee, for goodness sakes, then you're going to charge more. So that's my understanding kind of what happened there. But it may not be 100% accurate because I don't think anybody knows exactly what happened there. But there was certainly some interest. You'd be foolish not to at least engage in a third-tier conversation.
Absolutely.
Third-tier party conversation. So we have an idea now what's going to happen there. And I think that you're going to see a different Carolina football. One of my takeaways from the practice the other day, and yours was as well, because you and I were talking at the practice, and we decided not to do a podcast because we don't want to force people, 3 takeaways from a practice that the takeaways aren't very extensive. One of them was that they huddle. There's going to be a fullback, multiple tight ends. You're going to see a lot of pro stuff. You're going to see a lot of play action. It's going to look a lot different. And because of that, the kind of quarterback they may be looking at to bring in right now to run things and feel things out might be different than what you've seen at Carolina. So I'm not so sure that Ryan Brown could be that guy, although Ryan Brown's a pretty good athlete. He can run some, and Bryce can run some, but maybe they're just not ready yet. So I can see them bringing in a guy that's taken a lot of snaps, won some games. He's made throws in the last minute of close games that were must-win situations. They need and can also break free from the pocket and make things happen. And a guy you can run a little trickery with. So I can see we saw flea flicker in practice the other day.
Yeah.
So I can see that them doing something along those lines, and they're going to need to put some guys around them too, because they still need dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I think it'll be a fairly active window both ways for North Carolina. Again, I think that kind of goes without saying anywhere when you're in your first year under a new regime. Real quickly, because we'll head out in a second, but other positions, maybe just list a few that you think, and again, this is in the piece, so go check that out too. I'll try to link it below, but like I do every time pretty much, I'll probably forget to do it. Any other position groups that you think Carolina might specifically be looking? I know everything's kind of maybe wide open because you never know who's going to leave, but are there other position groups in particular you think, yeah, they might need a little bit of help there?
Sometimes Michael Lombardi and Bill Belichick say stuff exactly. They're not keeping anything from us. They're building this thing from inside out. Mm-hmm. Where it's the inside line of scrimmage. It's all when we talk with Michael Lombardi, gosh, a week after the Super Bowl, maybe several days after the Super Bowl, he kept referencing the Chiefs at the line of scrimmage.
Starts in the trenches, man.
Starts in the trenches. So I think they're gonna slap linemen on the books like there's no tomorrow. They're gonna slap linemen on the books and see who sticks.
And I get that with 115 scholarships. Why would you not?
105, yeah, and they're going to use it now.
Or whatever.
They're going to use them right now, and it doesn't hurt to bring them in. And they already have operated in a world where it's all a transactional operation. So that's nothing new to them. A lot of coaches are adapting to that, and they have a tough time building that relationship and then suddenly making a transactional decision. These guys are just operating in that world. Now, I don't think Bill Belichick is going to know a whole lot about the girlfriends of any of his players, like Mac did. And that's great for Mac. It worked for him. Mac did in time. I think people will look back at Mac's tenure and appreciate it more than they do right now.
They should.
No doubt about it. And there's no right or wrong way, to be honest with you. It's just what their way is. Belichick's way is not that way. And quite frankly, with the portal and everything exploding, with the revenue share in place now, with the possibility that Carolina State are going to get a lot more money with this gambling stuff that Brian Murphy at WR. If you don't follow Brian Murphy on WRL on Twitter, please do so. He is a phenomenal reporter, and he is locked into this kind of stuff that you need to know if you're thinking about leaving the conference and the survival of the ACC, and we got no money and that kind of stuff. Follow him. And go ahead and gorge on what he's writing about with respect to the gambling and the money in state. It's totally worth your time, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of time. So having the people in place now, I think, make a lot of sense because they work in that world. So I can see them being very heavy on bringing in linemen. They brought in 18 kids in the winter from the portal. 8 of them were linemen, 5 offensive linemen, 3 defensive linemen. I think you're going to continue to see stuff like that, especially on the defensive side. I look at the interior of the line like on paper, and I'm kind of scratching my head and say, okay, where are all the dogs in the 4-point states? I'm really curious because we need to see anything in the spring. Hopefully we will in the fall. And then Bo leaves. And my first reaction, to be honest with you, was the 2 kids they brought in from the portal, a dude from Delaware and from UConn. And they played against the guy from UConn in Fenway Bowl, and he was, I think, the defensive MVP.
He was, yeah.
Like, they are I'm not going to pronounce his name, the kid from Delaware, because I don't 100% know exactly. I've heard 3 different pronunciations. I don't want to screw it up because it's not fair to him. I've heard that he's a damn dog.
Yeah,
there are a lot of really good. Go look at every NFL roster right now and look at all the different colleges these guys are from. You're going to find lots of dudes from smaller schools. And Delaware is a good program. A lot of history there. They get 25,000 people a game. They should move up to FBS, to be honest with you. And they produce some NFL players from time to time. In fact, there's a quarterback in the NFL from Delaware who's pretty damn good and won a Super Bowl by the name of Flacco. Mm-hmm. So this guy I've heard really, really good things about. And, of course, I'm drawing a blank right now because my phone is distracting me, lighting up like crazy.
My phone's buzzing over here, too.
Yeah,
for some reason.
He's really good, too. So maybe that's why. Mm-hmm. Maybe they beat Bo out. We don't know. Maybe there's too much competition. Bo's like, look, I got 2 years left. I got to maximize my reps. Go somewhere else. Who has any idea? But I do know that I've heard that they've done well. But I think they're in good shape on the outside of the defensive line at end. But I think it's a massive question mark in the interior line. So they got to go out and get some dudes. But remember, they've got money to spend, Jacob. They didn't spend a ton of money in the winter. They had a plan. First of all, when Lombardi, I say Lombardi and Belichick, when they came in, the portal was already open. Mm-hmm. So they were prepared going in. I've reported before that Bill Belichick and Lombardi were looking at these things long before he was hired. So they had a little bit of a plan, but they had to race and get some guys in. So they needed people in for the spring. And they were intrigued by some guys who said, okay, let's see how it goes. And they knew the roster was going to expand, so they could afford to bring those guys in. But they didn't spend a ton of money. Now they have more money to spend. They have a lot of money to spend this spring because of what they didn't spend before. And I can see them being intriguingly active, if that's the right way to say it, here in the next couple of weeks. They might throw some cash out there for a couple of guys that can come in and be impact players, because now they know what they have. They didn't know what they had before. Film is only so much. And one of the things I love about Belichick as a coach, and I've seen it in practice, he's hands-on. He's right there. He's that there's an element, I'm overplaying it here, but there's an element of old school of that, and I'm dating myself again here. I do that way too often now, which means I'm old. But that coach, I had an offensive line coach back in the day that when we're hitting the sled, you could smell his breath when he's yelling at you and you're hitting the sled because he's right there. He'd be on the damn sled. All right. Belichick's not on the sled, but for a head coach today, he's right there. He's not on a tower. He's not walking around mic'd up from a distance. He's right there watching stuff and he's instructing. So he knows what he has. So he knows what he needs. And they know how much money they have. And because they were very frugal and smart with their cash in the winter, they've got cash to spend now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they need to. I've said it a few times behind the scenes and on podcasts. I don't think the roster as it is right now is capable of really competing for anything this year, even in the ACC. That's my personal opinion. And I think they need to go out and get guys.
It's hard to tell.
It is, but especially I like Bryce Baker a lot, but I don't think he's going to win you help you compete for an ACC title year one with what they have right now.
If you put a B+ quarterback with this roster as it stands right now, they can win games.
I think they can win games. I just don't know if they can.
There's some intriguing parts. Here's what I'm wrestling with, and I want to throw this at you. I want you to respond to this, and I want people who are watching to respond as well, because we've been so basketball deep that I've really dove into the football stuff here again the past week because we didn't get access during most of the spring. But I was going over the entire roster and including the portal guys. I separated them and I looked at what was coming back. And I think a lot of us are getting caught in the idea of just thinking about what they lost and what's coming back, because that's the way we're conditioned to think, because it's been like that our entire lifetimes. But I start looking at the portal guys that came in. There's some impact guys there. Kamari House at linebacker, you can tell me he's not going to start me an impact guy? So I think they're going to go get a linebacker in the portal just because they have a lot more scholarships to give. And you're talking about an NFL guy. There's no feelings in the NFL. There's no, we invested 3 years in you, so we're going to give you one more chance. We need guys to get the job done, period. So we have to adjust to that kind of thinking. So I'm looking at some other guys. The wide receiver from Michigan State's going to get a chance to get on the field and play. You've got some other guys. You've got some offensive linemen. Christo Kelly from Holy Cross was the starting center Saturday, and Austin Blasky was at guard. So we got to also include the quality they brought in from the portal and think of those guys as returning players now. It's just that we don't know them as well because we didn't watch them last fall, and we know what they lost. They lost a lot of good players, they lost a pretty, they're going to be one of the a rare 6 and 7 football team that pumps about 7 guys in the NFL the next year. They have a lot of dudes who are going to play in the NFL from last year's team. So we get caught up in thinking about what they lost, but they did replace, and there are some players that have opportunity. They're going to be better, that are going to get. I think Amari Campbell, who was really good last year, could be an All-American. I think he is fantastic, and they had to fight off schools trying to get him. So when you think about portal money, NIL money, you got to spend it to keep your guys first. And Amari Campbell's probably doing very, very well right now. So I'm asking you, based on what I just said, does that make you rethink maybe how you look at things, assuming they have a B+ quarterback, which should be the mission? at the minimum.
A little bit. You do make some good points on the defensive side of the ball. I'm one of those guys. A lot of Carolina fans sitting there. When that defense is turned around, I will believe it when I see it, AJ, because I've been watching Carolina for a long time, and I've said it 6 billion and a half times. I've never seen a good, really like a stout defense in North Carolina in my nearly 30 years on this planet. Flirted with it a couple times. Butch Davis there. I'm not going to go, but so when that happens, I'll believe it when I see it, but I do like some of the parts over there. I think my main stuff comes from the trenches, like we've talked about it. I don't think there's enough there yet. Yet is the key word. And the quarterback position still concerns me because I think Bryce Baker, if you had to play tomorrow, is the guy. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And I think he could do a good job because there's a lot of talent there. But I also kind of look at him maybe a little bit more that I look at like a Drake May of like, I think it would be more beneficial for him to come in and maybe sit behind a really talented guy for a year. Now, but there's also a little bit of a caveat for that because you go out and get a quarterback who's supposed to be here and start for the next 3 years. What does that mean for a guy like Bryce Baker? I don't know, because I think he is talented enough to run the show. And I think in an ideal world, though, you let him develop behind the scenes for 1 year and then start next year. I think that the ceiling gets even higher there. So I'm more basing my argument off of this whole defensive thing that I've just never witnessed with my own two eyeballs.
Yeah, I got you.
And the fact that the trenches, I just don't think are strong enough right now to compete for an ACC title potentially. I think Carolina could potentially get to that point if they have a really good portal. But again, go get a really good quarterback, add some dogs in the trenches, and I think you've got a chance to do some nice things this year. And again, too, a lot of it's speculation too, AJ, because we talked to Belichick one time about a month ago. I mean, we don't really know what progress was made, who stood out, and how you feeling about this group and that group during spring ball. We're kind of having to base all of our stuff on what we're hearing through those back channels and what we're getting from sources, but also what we saw in the limited amount of time we got to actually see them in person. So for me, it's just, there's still some question marks that need to be answered and filled. And again, Carolina can do that in the portal because A, they have money, and B, I mean, you want to come play for a guy like Bill Belichick. I think a lot of players, very talented players, are going to be very intrigued by that prospect. So 33rd NFL team, AJ, don't forget about that now. 33rd NFL team.
As somebody said, very funny after watching most of practice that day, well, if this is the 33rd team in the NFL, we know who's got the number one pick next year.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think we'll learn a lot about what happened during spring practice based on the portal.
Mm-hmm.
A, who leaves, B, what do they emphasize?
It's a good point. It's going to be very telling.
So we're going to have to kind of read. I can't stand this term because it's always used during an election year, but we're going to have to read the tea leaves on this one.
Absolutely.
And that'll be fun. But I agree with you. And by the way, I think Ryan Brown would be the starting quarterback if they played TCU today, not Bryce Baker.
Yeah, you might be right on that.
Ryan Brown already knows how to go through his check downs. He started games. Belichick may like him because the whole pro offense thing. How many downfield passes did Tom Brady throw? It wasn't like he was chucking it down the field all the time. There's a use the fullback, use your tight end, use Gronk, pick your way down the field, be very systematic and specific with things and very clean. And I'm not saying Ryan Brown's that guy and Baker's not. I'm just saying that Brown's played. And one of the things we did see from him, because they did a lot of stuff that we were able to see. We at least they showed us a lot of things. He did a nice job with the quick checkdowns and getting rid of the ball. He did some good stuff with that. So I don't think he's terrible. And Bryce Baker's loaded with talent. I just don't think Bill Belichick, under these circumstances, is going to hand the keys to one of those two guys. And we haven't mentioned Max Johnson. Max wasn't participating in any of the competitive stuff. And he's still limping some. So Max is on his own pace, and whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. But I don't expect him to be in the mix. So whoever they get also might be, you said something about Baker, maybe they bring in somebody that's a starter now, but Baker beats him out next year.
That's very possible.
You have this wonderful seed with the potential to have this great plant. Well, they got to water the plant. They got to fertilize it. Mm-hmm. That's Bryce Baker. Mm-hmm. So bring somebody else in and allow that process to take place. And a year from now, boom, there's Bryce Baker.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued to see what Carolina does in the portal. I think they will get a quarterback. I do agree with you. And I think you'll see a lot of additions in the trenches. And again, you're going to see a lot of guys leave and you'll see a lot of guys come in. So I think it's gonna be a very active portal season. So AJ, keep drinking them 5-hour energies because you're probably not going to sleep between now and whenever this thing closes in the next 2 weeks.
Box of them over there, and I haven't emptied the trash in my office in a while.
Hey, man, I know your wife's a nurse. You might as well just get her to hook IV up to a 5-hour energy bottles.
See, this is me right now. This is the Oscar Madison part of me. The trash is overflowing, and I still toss the 5-hour energies over there until there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 of them on the floor right next to the trash can. I would plan on doing that today. I have to write it into my schedule. Empty office trash can.
Yeah, and you'll probably get and 6 people enter the portal, and 6 people will commit to Carolina in that 35-second time span.
Yeah, and Carolina leaves for the SEC all while I'm taking the trash.
Yeah. You can throw that in there too. So yeah,
and they change their colors to red and white.
Yeah, they change the red and white,
and they do something like this.
And they announce they're building a new basketball.
What would be a ram horn like this?
Yeah,
there's no hand signal in Chapel Hill.
Yeah,
you see coaches get hired and they learn these creepy hand signals. Did you see Texas A&M, the basketball coach gets hired? They're doing all that stuff with
Texas A&M
with the yell leaders.
A&M's it's an interesting place.
Cult right there.
I was gonna say it. I'm glad you said it. If there's any Texas A&M fans watching,
a friend of mine from high school, true story, is I connect the sports here because my algebra 2 trig teacher was our offensive coordinator named Marty Bonnet, had a high-pitched voice. He's the one that I told you about I'll tell the story this offseason. Remind me, we'll do a pod where I'll tell the Marty Bonnet, me being a man story from football practice. And it connects Joe Davis and Wake Forest because Joe Davis played at Wake Forest. Anyway, her name is Michelle Wilson, M.A. Shell Wilson, not M.I. Shell Wilson. I got an 8 on an Algebra 2 trig test. An 8. It was a red 8 with a red circle around it that Marty Bonnet showed the whole class. And he brought it to me and hands it to me and just looked at me. He's our offensive coordinator. And bless Michelle Wilson's heart, she turns around, she goes, "I'll help you study if you need help." She married an Aggie, Texas A&M Aggie. So when Carolina played A&M in the Orange Bowl a few years ago, she's sending me these DMs and stuff. We're talking about the game. She's this big Texas A&M Aggie now. Lives out near college. Lives in Houston, I think. And so when I think about that, I always think of her and my connection to football here, which justifies me saying this on a podcast, is that she was right there when she felt sorry for me when I got an 8, when it was entirely my fault. I had other things preoccupying my time other than Algebra 2 trig.
I was never good at math, and then when you hit the algebra stuff and all that jazz,
But I bet you never got an 8.
No, I probably got close to an 8, but I don't know if I ever got a snowman.
It was literally an 8. It was Cal Ripken, baby.
That's tough. That's tough. That's tough right there.
But I'll help you study if you need to.
But AJ, how much algebra have you done in the last 30 years? I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably about -0. That's not even a number. That shows how much I know about math. So,
but you got to learn how to learn. That's what it's all about, right?
That's a good point. It's a fantastic point. And on that note,
in full disclosure, the next test I got a 19, so I more than doubled my score.
Can't say.
No, in all seriousness, I barely passed that class because I got like a D-.
Yeah,
and it may have been that athlete curve.
Oh, yeah, they probably were looking out for you a little bit, especially if you got an 8 on it and a 16 on a test.
They were. I wasn't good enough athlete to get the curve, my man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let me give that.
The coach was like, "Hey, fail Jones," because that way we get rid of him.
Yeah, exactly. They're probably that might have been an inside job trying to give you 8s on tests, trying to get you off the team. Who knows, man? We'll have to go reinvestigate.
I earned every one of those 8 points, baby. I spelled my name properly.
Yeah, man. Well, hopefully, AJ, Carolina doesn't get an 8. We don't go back in a couple weeks and review Carolina's portal activity, and it's an 8 out of 100. I'm hoping a little bit better than that.
Segue by
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. We're gonna go ahead and get out of here because we've somehow managed to talk about the portal opening for 40 minutes. But that's a daily drop, and that's TarHeelIllustrated.com. And you guys know how it is. We appreciate everybody who's watched. Get involved in the comments. Like AJ said earlier, want to hear what you think Carolina needs in the portal. Do you want to just see Bryce Baker maybe start? Do you think Carolina needs to go out in the portal and get a quarterback? Let us know. Or do you maybe even think Ryan Brown could be the guy? Let us know in the comments below. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of our daily drop, maybe the record longest daily drop we've done. I'll have to go crunch them numbers when I have time.
Certainly in football.
Yeah, certainly in football. That's probably a good one. I bet it's up there.
It's the most we've ever talked about Texas A&M. And it's the most we've ever talked about my Algebra 2 trigonometry prowess. And it's the most we've ever talked about Michelle Wilson.
That's a fact. That is a fact, and there's nothing you can take away from that. So we're going to get out of here, like I've said, and we'll see y'all next time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.